Viewers of this program are aware, special counsel Jack Smith is a prosecutor that stays out of the spotlight. He prefers instead to speak through his filings. And that is why his latest brief in the federal election case merits our attention. Over the weekend, the Justice Department responded to Trump's claims that he is immune from prosecution because what he did was within the scope of his duties as President of the United States. That's an argument that Trump is taking to the courts in order to try and get the whole election case dismissed. While the special counsel is speaking to the appeals court that will hear oral arguments next week, let's be honest, he's also speaking to any of us who care about the health of our democracy. Prosecutors acknowledge the fact that we are dealing with an unprecedented situation. Quote, for the first time in our nation's history, a grand jury has charged a former president with committing crimes while in office to overturn an election that he lost. In response, the defendant claims to protect the institution of the presidency. He must be cloaked with absolute immunity from criminal prosecution unless the House impeached and the Senate convicted him for the same conduct. He is wrong. The special counsel also suggests that more than just the indictment of Donald Trump and the election is at stake here. Quote, the presidency plays a vital role in our constitutional system, but so does the principle of accountability for criminal acts, particularly those that strike at the heart of the democratic process. Rather than vindicating our constitutional framework, the defendant's sweeping immunity claim threatens to license presidents to commit crimes to remain in office. If Donald Trump is not held accountable, prosecutors say, the basic principles of our democracy, well, they are up for debate. Quote, a scheme to thwart the peaceful transfer of power contradicts the most basic constitutional check on executive abuses. A president comes to power by winning an election, not by subverting the results of the vote. A response from Trump's team could come down at any minute now. And that is where we start today with former Deputy Assistant Attorney General and former U.S. Attorney Harry Litman, plus former lead investigator for the January 6th Select Committee, Tim Heaphy, is here. And with me at the table, Democratic strategist and director of the Public Policy Program at Hunter College, Basil Smikle. Gentlemen, it is good to see you all. Tim, let's start with you. Seems like Trump claiming that being president is sort of a get-out-of-jail-free card for any potential crimes committed while one is in office. What is then the special counsel saying?
The special counsel is saying, Alicia, that not everything you do while in office necessarily is part of your official responsibility. The question here, the essential question, is, was the president's activity before and on January 6th part of his official responsibility as president, or, as the special counsel maintains, different political activity, even criminal conspiracy to thwart the very foundation of democracy, the transfer of power? We heard this argument at the special committee again, the select committee again and again and again. Witnesses who would say, this is executive privilege. It's part of my official responsibility. You, therefore, Congress can't reach it. And the consistent response that we made is the same response that Jack Smith is making to the Supreme Court. And that is, not everything that you do is connected to your official responsibility. It just can't be that absolutely everything is part of being president of the United States. There's a zone of official responsibility, and then there's a zone beyond that. And that is what the special counsel is arguing. That's the precise question for the Supreme Court.
Right. And Basil, here's the thing, which is there is the presidency and then there is democracy itself. Here's part of what Jack Smith is arguing. To the extent that any concern about shilling the president is implicated, the prospect of future criminal prosecution for knowingly criminal acts can have a salutary, not a chilling effect. I wonder what you make of this argument. This is about the health of democracy itself.
I think Tim's point is well taken. Not everything you do as president is about carrying out the official act of the presidency. It's clear to so many of us that so much of what Donald Trump was doing is trying to further his hold on power. You know, I'm a trustee of the Roosevelt Presidential Library. And remember, some months ago, a number of the presidential libraries came together to write a letter to say and talk about the importance of our democracy in this moment in securing our freedoms. Essentially what it says is that the history of our country and the presidency is speaking to this moment right now, because everything that goes forward, particularly with Jack Smith in this prosecution, will dictate what happens after. And I think that's the important moment that we're in, that as President of the United States, we, the people, have to determine what was, again, your official act as president, and then what did you do to subvert the process? and make it so that future presidents don't have the same leeway and runway to do the exact same thing. So to me, this is all about accountability, not just past to present, but present to forward.
Right, not what is in the rear view, but what is before us. Harry, I want to read just a little more from the special counsel's filing. Quote, in his view, meaning Trump's, a court should treat a president's criminal conduct as immune from prosecution as long as it takes the form of correspondence with a state official about a matter in which there is a federal interest, a meeting with a member of the executive branch, or a statement on a matter of public concern. That approach would grant immunity from criminal prosecution to a president who accepts a bribe in exchange for directing a lucrative government contract to the payer, a president who instructs the FBI director to plant incriminating evidence on a political enemy, a president who orders the National Guard to murder his most prominent critics, or a president who sells nuclear secrets to a foreign adversary, because in each of these scenarios, the president could assert that he was simply executing the laws or communicating with the Department of Justice or discharging his powers as commander-in-chief or engaging in foreign diplomacy. Talk to us, Harry, about the dangers of the courts here if they were to side with Trump, the Pandora's box that could then open.
Yeah, and I think what's important, Alicia, is just what care they took to delineate that Pandora's box. Everything that Tim says about the argument is right, but it's very, I think, interesting and compelling that in addition to that, they took the time to really give a parade of horribles, a series of sort of rhetorical flourishes that make clear what the stakes are, not simply the law, but if you countenance this, you're countenancing everything. You're countenancing any president trying to overturn the law to stay in power, not to mention these series of base crimes that you've just described in the brief. So I think it's a sort of high-minded brief, in addition to getting down and dirty with the actual poor merits of Trump's claim, and they are poor, and I expect them to lose. He really, in addition, really paints the broader picture and what's at stake in a way that I think will be very compelling for the Court of Appeals.
Tim, Harry just referenced the arguments, the merits of the argument that Team Trump is making, and it's sort of a logic knot that I would like us to try to disentangle. A lot of people talking about this point from Trump's lawyers. They say, quote, a president who is acquitted by the Senate cannot be prosecuted for the acquitted conduct. Help me understand that argument.
Yeah, there's absolutely no basis for that in the text of the Constitution, in any statute. Essentially, they're saying, well, there's a process for holding presidents accountable, and that's called impeachment. And that's the only process. Again, there's just no authority for that. It comes out of whole cloth. If there is independent evidence of criminal violations, then, as the special counsel says, then that should be subject to trial by jury. Well, I want to go back to something Harry said that's really important. You know, a lot of times in Supreme Court cases, litigants try to narrow the focus. They try to tell the court, okay, you can answer this precise question without necessarily touching these broader issues, right? You make the justice's job easier if you can sort of make this as narrow as possible. By contrast, in this case, both sides are openly admitting the broad ramifications for democracy of their respective arguments, right? It's kind of a different approach than most litigants take in the Supreme Court. The former president's team is saying, look, if you allow this case to proceed, then presidents are going to be scared to do anything from here on because they're worried that they're going to get criminally prosecuted after they leave office. And the special counsel, conversely, is saying this matters a lot because accountability has to stand for something. And just as the president needs to execute his responsibilities, there has to be a rule of law, right? Both sides are wrapping themselves in this sort of magnitude of this case, which you just don't see that much in Supreme Court litigation. I mean, there's no question that this case is serious, but I think both sides are sort of acknowledging the really tremendous impact that it'll have on our democracy going forward.
Right, Harry, my instinctive response to that is, how could you not? How could you not talk about the stakes here? How could you not broaden it out? That said, given that I am not an attorney, as a matter of strategy, if most litigants do come before the Supreme Court and try to narrow the objective of the case, I wonder from a strategic vantage point what you make of the fact that both the special counsel and Trump's team are deciding to broaden it out.
Yeah, look, attorneys want to win. And usually, exactly as Tim says, you serve up the narrowest possible case that will have the fewest ramifications. not here, because the Supreme Court, including in what's going to be a very urgent appeal to do it very quickly, is meant to register the magnitude, both the importance of the question and the need for moving quickly. There's sort of no way around it. And if it does accept the case, which I think it likely will, except there's been a little asterisk that's just been put into play, but assuming it does, it will not try to play this as a minor little technical matter. It's grand, the same way they did in United States versus Nixon. It's the clash of really important principles, and I think for all the reasons Jack Smith says, the principles on his side of accountability and preventing lawlessness by rogue presidents will prevail.
Harry,
If it makes you feel any better, I have already put evac on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I can assure you.
Hey, Chapo, let me into the war room to see you, so I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Willie.
So, come on, when is it not, please? Okay, couple of things. I'm running low on the dough. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah, I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I was so damn good on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
This was just a diversion. Security, please bring up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. What's readiness? What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Right, evac.
She's right in front.
We're facing a heavy sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark. General! General!